Here we go. Finally Friday on Sports Daily on KFH. I'm Tommy Castor along with Paul Savage. In for Jacob Albracht. One more day here this week. Jad Chambers producing the program as always. And the IHOP hotline is officially open at 869-1240. It's a big time Friday. We're right in the midst of River Festival. We'll tell you what's going on downtown a little bit later on in the program. We've got PGA Tour golfer Sam Stevens joining the program in hour number 2. You won't want to miss that, talking about him qualifying for the U.S. Open, and a lot more to talk about. NBA Finals preview, Stanley Cup recap. We haven't talked much hockey this week, but the Stanley Cup Finals are underway. Frank Clark to the Broncos. There's a lot to get to on today's program. Paul, how we doing? Happy Friday. Good to see you today.
Hey, well, it's good to see you. I mean, we made it through a week. This is our first week together for a whole week. Not just 2 or 3 shows, 5 straight days. Are you man enough to get through the last day? I'm not thinking you may be, but I'll find out. Oh, and by the way, how did the celebrity dipping go last night?
Well, that was on Wednesday night, so a couple of nights ago.
The
ice cream
I thought
social.
It was last night. Okay.
No, it was good. It was good. It was really hot and humid outside, and so I was a little bit concerned that we were going to have just puddles of ice cream, ice cream soup to serve, but it held up really well. Shout out to the Wichita Wagon Masters for putting all that on. I was just a very, very, very small part in scooping ice cream for the ice cream social, but it was fun to see a bunch of folks downtown for that, and hopefully I'll get a chance to do it again. Well, hopefully next season. It was fun.
Isn't that cool to even be asked? I'm really proud of you. I'm really glad that you got to do that and give back a little to this city because, this city means a lot to guys like you and me who've been around a little bit.
Yep. It was fun. And of course, we're getting into the second and final weekend of River Festival. And like I mentioned, we'll tell you what's going on downtown a little bit later on in the program. Paul, I want to kick off the show with something that I didn't even tell you about, that I'm just going to kind of throw it out there because I'm going to be selfish for a second and talk about something that I think a few guys or a few people maybe care about in this part of the country. I know I'm one of the few, not very many though. I'm a big time diehard Atlanta Braves fan. If you listen to the show regularly, you know that about me. I love the Atlanta Braves. I have since I was a kid, and they faced their division rivals, the New York Mets, the last 3 nights in a row and swept the Mets. And this is crazy, Paul. The reason I'm bringing it up is because the Mets did something that they've never done before in the entire history of their franchise. They lost 3 consecutive games in a row when they led each game by 3 runs. The Braves came back in all 3 games. In fact, last night they won 13-10 in 10 innings on a walk-off 3-run homer from Ozzie Albies. Incredible. I only bring it up because I watched all 3 games. I love it when the Braves beat the Mets. I know that doesn't really, impact a lot of folks around here, but I'm a diehard. I had to bring it up.
Well, I'm glad you did. And by the way, you're not the only Braves fan around that's, and let me tell you what the genesis of that is. And you may have been one of these people as well, one of these kids as well. There was a day when baseball wasn't as prevalent on television as it is today. Yep. I mean, you can literally find a baseball game at any time, and if you want to stream and pay a little extra, you can get them all. You get every baseball game if whatever you want to do. So there's a lot of baseball on TV. That wasn't the case back in the days when Ted Turner was starting. What was the name of his Atlanta station? Whatever it was.
TBS. Superstation TBS.
Yep, that's right. Yep. And he was broadcast. Of course, at the time, Ted Turner owned the Atlanta Braves, and he was broadcasting, filling time on his own personal station, which was a blowtorch. I mean, it was from coast to coast. It was everywhere. That station was being played by everybody, went into millions and millions of households. And because that was really one of the few games that you can get almost at any time and get every game of the Atlanta Braves, a lot of people in this area started watching and becoming fans of the Atlanta Braves. And why wouldn't you? It was all you could get. But that was sort of, and that may have been how you're probably just at that edge of that age, where that might have been part of the catalyst of your love for the Atlanta Braves.
You are 100% correct. My dad, I remember growing up, he just wanted to watch baseball. It didn't really matter what game, right? Just whatever game was on.
Good point.
And it just happened to be the Braves every single night on TBS.
Yes.
And so that was primarily the games that were on. I mean, occasionally you could catch a Cubs game during the day on WGN, but really it was the Braves pretty much every single night. That was also at the time, so I'm 37. That was also at the time in the 90s when they were really good. You know, they won all of those division titles in a row. They went to the World Series. They won the World Series in 95. You had Tom Glavine and John Smoltz and Greg Maddux and Chipper Jones and Fred McGriff. You had all of those, top tier players. And, so those were my formative years. I remember saving up my allowance when I was probably in second or third grade, going and buying a Braves jersey. I went to, I don't even remember what the name of the store was. It was a store. It's on East 21st between Woodlawn and Rock. It used to be a sporting goods store back in the day. And I remember going there, saving up my allowance, buying. It was the only place in town we could find a Braves jersey in Wichita because you couldn't order things online, back then. So I went and I bought a Braves jersey, rocked that thing until the decal was falling off the front. Man, I was a diehard. And so I've carried that on into my adult years. And like I mentioned before, it was fun to watch them sweep their division rivals, the Mets, this week. It was pretty cool.
Well, it makes sense. It makes total sense. And trust me, there are so many closet Braves fans in the city of Wichita, as in a lot of cities, not just Wichita, I mean, everywhere because of your experiences. And they were smart enough to put their TV games on Ted Turner's own private television station. So that's really pretty cool. Well, congratulations on your 3-game sweep too.
I appreciate that. That was cool. So let's stick with diamond sports here in our first segment of the show. We'll switch over to softball and we'll go to collegiate softball. How about the Oklahoma Lady Sooners, Paul? Just absolutely incredible, winning their third straight. You want to talk about 3 in a row. I mentioned the Braves sweeping the Mets.
Right.
3 in a row national championships for Oklahoma softball. And I'm just going to read off these stats here really quick, Paul, and I want to get your reaction to this. This was Oklahoma's season in a nutshell, and this comes from ESPN. They were 61-1 overall, which is a Division I record, 53 straight wins, also a Division I record, 500 runs for the third straight season. That's a Division I record. And the second team to win 3 straight national titles in college softball. UCLA did it back in the late 80s. I mean, I'm not sure how many more superlatives you can give to Oklahoma softball. Just absolutely dominant, absolutely elite.
Well, not only that, I mean, we're talking about, are you going to be shocked or surprised if they win a 4th straight NCAA tournament next year? Because I'm not, because everybody's wanting to go there. And Oklahoma City, for those that don't know, is like, it's kind of like home plate for the world of softball. You've got the Softball Hall of Fame there. You've got all kinds of stadiums for tournaments, and it's one of the biggest softball tournament towns in America. It loves softball. And let me tell you, I'm starting to develop a really keen interest in following a little more softball. I'll be real truthful. I'm not saying that I haven't ever paid attention, but not like I have with this run. This run with Oklahoma has really tuned me into this thing, and particularly with the way Wichita State is really becoming a powerhouse. And I use the word powerhouse lightly to a certain extent, but it's certainly on its way, and there's certainly a lot of potential, and they're certainly going to put enough money into this program in Wichita State softball to make a run of whatever they want to do. But I find this fascinating. I sent you a note earlier this morning. You know what it reminds me of is Bud Wilkinson. Now, how can I say Bud Wilkinson? What are you talking about, Savage? Well, he won 47 straight games as a football coach at the University of Oklahoma, but he only got 2 straight championships out of that. I mean, he didn't win 3. And Tommy, how hard is it to win the championship of your conference in hockey? It's hard. It's hard. And to win national championships is harder. And all I'm saying is this is an amazing feat. And I won't be surprised if it's 4 straight. I'm starting to find my enjoyment. And you know kind of what I like, Tommy? The passion of these young ladies is palpable to me. I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm watching them holler and scream, and somebody brings a ball back into the ballpark and robs a home run, and the accolades that the pitcher is shouting out to that player. It's all the same. These young ladies are getting as terrific a charge of playing this game as if you and I were playing in the National Football Championships, or we were on the KU basketball team. And Tommy Castor is on the line to win the game on the free throw line with a 1-and-1 and can win the game for KU. It's just that exciting. And I really have appreciated it. And I find myself paying more and more attention to softball. And I don't think I'm alone. I really don't. I don't know if I'm alone, but I don't think I'm alone.
I don't think you're alone. I know you're not alone, because I think here locally, we've seen the ascent of Shocker softball under Christy Breadbinner. Of course, she got her contract extension earlier this week that we discussed. Renovations at Wilkins Stadium. They're going to be hosting the conference tournament next season. Just missed out on hosting a regional. And I think that you look at where Shocker softball is right now, and just all of the success that they've had. And then you look right down I-35 down in Norman and what Oklahoma has done. And you think, okay, that is the program that we want to emulate. That's where we need to get. And I'm not even suggesting that that's easy to do. That's incredibly difficult. The 61-1 record and winning your third straight national championship like Oklahoma did, I mean, that is incredibly difficult to do. And maybe those expectations are a little bit too high for any program, not just Wichita State, to try to accomplish. But you look at OU as the crown jewel of college softball. We're like 2 hours away, 2.5 max from Norman, right? So it's not that far. It's not that far out of grasp for Wichita State to continue to develop their softball program, continue to be the banner carrier for Wichita State athletics, because it is right now. I would suggest that Shocker softball is head and shoulders above baseball, men's basketball, women's basketball. Like, it's the banner carrier, in my opinion, right now of the programs at Wichita State that are the most visible and the most successful. It's among them right now.
Wow.
So I think you look at what OU has done under Patty Gasso, and you're like, all right, this is where Shocker softball needs to get. And I think that everything is coming together for Shocker softball to see a higher level of success moving forward. Renovations at the stadium will undoubtedly lead to better and bigger recruits and a higher caliber of softball player coming to Wichita State. I mean, I think that's just a given, right? Having consistency with the coaching staff and Christy Breadbinner, that's going to lead to more sustained success with Wichita State. So I think it's right there in front of them. And I think if I'm a Shocker softball fan, I'm looking at what's going on at OU and thinking, okay, like 3 straight and 3 championships in a row is hard to do, but at least the level of success they're having down in OU, if we want to be at the top of the mountain, we got to try to get to that point.
Right. And it's moments like this that I'm so glad that Wichita State's out of the Valley and into the AAC, because you wouldn't be able to be, I really don't think you could build that Wichita State softball program if you were still in the Valley, but you can in the AAC. But this is going to be something really special, and that will trickle down to high school softball all around the central part of the state of Kansas with the success of Wichita State. And how cool is it for young ladies going to high school thinking to themselves, gosh, if I could just get good enough, if I could work hard enough just to get a look from Wichita State and get coach over here to look at me and visit with me. Oh, what a thrill that would be. And that's where Wichita State wants to be. It's where we all want them to be. But Oklahoma is something really special on this. The fact of 3 straight national championships, Tommy, to a guy who has won 5 conference championships in 30 years of coaching. That's one every 6 years. I'm here to tell you, it's hard. Championships are hard. They don't come around as often as one would like. I want more than I want more than 5. But man, oh man, that they're hard to get, and I'm trying my best. But I only can get one every 6 years, it seems like.
You sent me a graphic earlier this morning that I believe was from ESPN that listed the programs that have won 3 straight national championships in the NCAA. And, you put Oklahoma softball up there and Patty Gasso up there with some of the legends in college athletics, like Gino Uriyama at UConn, doing that with the women's basketball program multiple times. Pat Summitt, Tennessee women's basketball. Of course, she's one of the greatest women's basketball coaches of all time. You've got John Wooden, UCLA basketball, back in the late 60s and early 70s in the stretch that UCLA basketball had. Sharon Backus, UCLA softball, back in the late 80s. That was the last time a college softball program won 3 straight national championships. And Rod Dedeaux in the early 70s with USC baseball. Those are the coaches. And now you include Patty Gasso on that list of winning 3 straight national championships in any sport in college athletics.
Right.
I mean, we've said it before, it's difficult to do, but that elevates Patty Gasso up there with some of the greatest college athletic coaches of all time.
Right. Now, I wasn't sure I caught it. Did you mention John Wooden as well?
I did, of course.
Okay, good.
Of course.
Because that's so important. And one of these days, I'm going to tell you my John Wooden story, if you don't mind. But anyway, sure. I really appreciate that list because three straight championships and Pat Summitt's on there. And we haven't mentioned the name Pat Summitt for a long time. Mm-hmm. Tommy, I'm going to tell you something. Pat Summitt's my favorite coach of all sports of all time. Wow. Men's, women's, Pat Summitt. Because of the way she handled herself, the way she drove her players, and yet her players still loved her. I mean, to me, and of course, she won like crazy at the University of Tennessee, and an Olympian, and all. I mean, she was just my favorite coach of all time. And so I caught a little flack probably many years ago when Bruce Hurdle and I were doing a show together. I made the comment. I was just an innocent comment, and I never lived this down with Hurdle, but I just made the innocent comment. I thought Pat Summitt was hot, and something. I don't need to hear that from Hurdle, and so. But anyway, he never let me forget that. And of course, she passed away a few years back, and right. I was so sad to see that because well before her time should be. With a disease that is very, very hard to get around. And but anyway, this is really something special. And I don't mean to get off topic with Pat Summitt, of course, but it's one of those things where you just don't see 3 championships come straight every year. We don't see that very often. But I got a feeling it might be 4. But I had a feeling that the Las Vegas Stars were also going to win Game 3. So there you go. What do I know?
Yeah, I can't focus on anything else after hearing you say that you thought that Pat Summitt was hot. So I think at that point it's a good time to take a break because I literally can't focus on talking about anything else because I'm just picturing you thinking that Pat Summitt was hot. I'm glad that you shared that story though. That was a good story. But hats off to OU softball. That's an impressive feat for them to win 3 in a row. I think it's the shining star, the shining example for Wichita State softball. Of course, that program continues to be electric and fantastic and some phenomenal players, a great coach in Christy Breadbinner. And you can look right down the road on I-35 and, see the Oklahoma Sooners winning 3 in a row. And that's the top of the mountain for Shocker softball. I know that program will continue to grow. We're going to go ahead and take our first break of the show. The IHOP hotline is open 869-1240. When we come back, we're going to talk Frank Clark joining the dark side, going from the Chiefs to the Broncos. Details on that on the way on Sports Daily. Our buddy Jason joins the show on our video stream on our YouTube page, commenting, Paul, saying, "You are scaring us with that comment on Pat Summit. It is now burned in our brains for the rest of the day." Jason, thanks for that comment. I think you speak for all of us when you bring that up, Paul.
Oh, brother. Come on now. Come on now.
I love that. That's so good. Thanks for the comment, Jason. Of course, you can watch our video stream on the KFH YouTube page, the KFH Facebook page, and the Sports Daily Twitter page. You can leave your comments right there, and they'll pop up right on the screen as you're joining along with us on the video stream. And, of course, the IHOP hotline open at 869-1240. Paul, I've got a quick story to tell you. It's Friday. It's our last day together and my final day of doing the show from home. I'll be back and doing the show next week. Jacob will be back from vacation next week. And so I wanted to share this story because it's Friday and because, well, frankly, I can share this story. So, of course, I've been at home the last couple of weeks with our newborn and, helping out my wife and all of that. And I don't know if you've ever gotten into this mode before, Paul. I'm sure that some of our listeners have, where, I've been at home and I've been thinking, okay, since I'm at home, now is the time for me to try to get some things done around the house that I've been putting off for a long time that, or maybe have needed to be done for a while. And so I've had, all these different projects I've been working on and all this different, all this stuff. So our washer and dryer is in our basement, which I know is not uncommon, in our basement. And of course we, live upstairs in our master bedroom and all of that. I get really tired. And of course, now we have a newborn and a toddler. I've gotten really tired of having to go downstairs multiple different times to check and see if our washer and dryer is done. I can't tell from upstairs, from our master bedroom. I'm constantly going down the stairs and then up the stairs and checking and seeing if it's done and complete. So I've been researching and trying to find, is there any way that I can get some kind of notification on my phone? I'm a technology kind of guy. Can I do something to put on the washer and dryer? And when it's done, I'll get an alert on my phone or a text message or an email or something letting me know it's done. So I found a solution, Paul. I put vibration sensors on my washer and dryer. And when the vibration is done, that means the whole thing is done. And I get a notification on my phone and I get to go and I know that the laundry is complete at that point. So I was really excited about this. My wife was kind of like rolling her eyes, like, okay, whatever. If that's what you feel like you need to do, like, that's fine. So I get it all put together. I'm really excited about it. And for whatever reason, the vibration sensors that I got, when I actually have them attached to the washer and dryer, for some reason, it's like messing with, I don't know, the wires or whatever. And the whole thing's just shut down. Like the washer and dryer just stops working. Just completely stops working.
Way to go.
And right. And so now what I've turned into is my wife is like angry with me. And so like during the commercial break, she's trying to do a load of laundry for our newborn. She comes in, she's like, what are you doing? The washer is not working now. Like, you've made my job harder. And I'm like, well, I've been trying to make it easier for you, honey. She's like, well, no, you've basically broken everything now. And I feel like, I think a lot of husbands can relate to that, like trying to fix something that didn't need to be fixed. And then you end up breaking the entire thing.
Wow. What a story. I got to give you credit for even telling that story to our audience.
I'm trying. I'm trying to help.
You're trying to help. What's wrong with you? You're a husband. Do you not understand that you can't do anything to help? Do you not get that? What is the sooner you
just be trying to make life easier for everybody? I mean, of course, I've made life harder, but my intentions were good, right?
Yeah, you're very naive. Just very, very naive to think you can satisfy your wife. I mean, I just think you're naive, very naive. Well, and every man in Wichita listening to this show is shaking their heads. Savage writes on this one. Yeah, Savage right on this one.
So basically what it's turned into is now I've pulled off those vibration sensors. They're gone. And the washer and dryer works fine. So for whatever reason, it was the sensors that were causing issues and causing the whole thing to shut down.
Well,
so unfortunately that didn't work.
I'm no technical wizard, obviously, but what about some sort of little camera? One, you could flip it on while you're, remotely on, you turn your washer dryer on and you put a little remote camera up on the wall somewhere and you can kind of watch it. And, you zero in on the knobs that say how much time's left and where it's at. And what about a little camera?
That's not a bad idea. I haven't even thought about that. I know that uh, the Amazon Alexa, that whole thing, it will actually listen for beeping appliances like that. I did some research on that too. So if you have one of those little like Echo Dots or whatever, it will listen for an appliance beeping and then it will send you an alert. The problem is our brand of washer and dryer doesn't beep, it plays a song. So it completely doesn't work with Alexa, which is ridiculous. But
Hammer's the way to go.
I think that I might have to look into that, but unfortunately the vibration sensor didn't work. And I think my wife is ready for me to go back to work.
Right.
I think we're at that point now.
Yeah.
I've only got a couple of days left to be back in the office. I think she's like, honey, you've tried to help too much. Let's just go back to work, go back to what's normal. We'll get back into that routine. But hey, at least I tried, right?
Well, you did.
Some husbands wouldn't even try.
Yeah, Tommy Castor, causing havoc. I mean, that's just kind of the way it goes.
I got to say this, Tommy. I feel really bad about this. My washer and dryer sends me push notifications when it's done.
I know. Like, and so my wife was like, hey, like there are some washer and dryers out there that will do that. And I said, well, yeah, for like what, a couple $1,000s? Like we don't need to replace our washer and dryer. I'm trying to find a cheap fix here,
There you go.
That's what you're looking for. I like that.
That's why you broke your washing machine. Okay.
That's why I broke the washing machine, looking for a cheap fix. But you know what? I'll try the camera. I'll try the camera. I'll report back, and we'll see how that goes.
All right, good.
All right, we're gonna shift gears and talk NFL. Big time shocker yesterday. I feel like, Paul. Frank Clark, formerly of the Kansas City Chiefs, agrees to a one-year deal with the Denver Broncos. It doesn't happen very often, Paul, when you've got a player that goes from Kansas City to Denver. It does happen occasionally. I know Neil Smith, did it a long time ago, but Frank Clark joins the list of players that had success for Kansas City and now goes to the Broncos. Of course, Clark was a free agent. They could not figure out a reworked deal for him to come back to Kansas City. I know that, guys like Chris Jones, who loved playing with Frank Clark, had been really advocating to bring Clark back to Kansas City on a reworked deal. Ultimately, though, Clark stays in the division. He goes to Denver. He's going to be playing for Sean Payton. Do you feel like this is an impact signing for Denver, or do you think that Clark, it's not really going to do a whole lot for him or for the Broncos?
No, I think it could be very good. I mean, it depends on which Frank Clark shows up, the one that's focused or the one that, it has distractions in his life going on. But I think this is good for the Broncos. And after all, the Broncos are my number 3 team. I've Chiefs number 1. Cowboys number 2, Broncos number 3, even though they're rivals, and I get they're rivals. But then again, I have an interest in Colorado. I have, real estate in Colorado. They're my team. So I have skin in the game. So I'm kind of glad they went there. Now, I don't want Frank Clark and the Denver Broncos to beat the Chiefs. I don't want that. I do not want that at all. But I want them to beat everybody else. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with it. I think it could be good. But I don't know that it'll be good. I think it'll be good. It could be good.
Yeah, I was surprised by this because
Why
I know
that.
What?
Why
I was surprised he signed with the Broncos.
Why?
I wasn't surprised that he went somewhere else. I don't know. I think that when you go and you win a couple championships, and Frank Clark was a much better playoff player than he was in the regular season. And he's kind of been that way throughout his entire career, where he was better in the playoffs than in the regular season. You go to a team that not only the Chiefs have just historically dominated. I mean, the Broncos haven't beat the Chiefs in since the Obama administration. It's been a long time. Not only that, but the Broncos haven't even sniffed the playoffs in the last several years. And when you're Frank Clark, you should know at least that you are better in the playoffs than in the regular season, and you're not getting any younger. You don't have, I mean, I would be shocked if he plays another 5 years in the league. He doesn't have a ton of time left. And so why would you want to go to a team in a rebuild mode? I know they've got Russell Wilson. I know they've got Sean Payton. I know they've kind of reloaded, but that's a fairly big gamble. And if your goal is, and I would think it would be for me if I was Frank Clark, to try to win as many championships as possible before my time in the league is up, why would you go to the Broncos?
Well, that's an interesting question. Maybe because they're going to pay him more than anybody else. I don't know. I
mean, priorities, sure, right? Like priorities are different for each player. And that was a big reason why he wasn't able to work out a deal with the Chiefs. I mean, with the cap space that the Chiefs had, and then the amount of money that Frank Clark was looking for, it just didn't work.
Right.
And I wonder if this, not that, and I really don't think that losing Frank Clark from a Chiefs perspective is that big of a deal. Jacob and I talked about it when they couldn't come to an agreement on a rework deal. That, okay, like, sure, you kind of have a little bit of an attachment to the guy because he helped you win 2 championships in the last 4 years. I get that. I understand all of that. But I do think that the Chiefs have an opportunity for some higher impact players at that position, opposite of George Karlaftis and, whoever else they've got,
Right.
At the defensive end position. But I wonder what kind of impact he will have for a Broncos defense that I think is really searching for their identity. And maybe he can have a resurgence in Denver. I don't know the answer to that. I just don't love the idea of a guy that played, at a high level for Kansas City, helped you win 2 Super Bowls, now going and playing for your division rival.
I got you. I'm going to try to answer maybe 2 of your questions at the same time. You said, why would he go to Denver? And I just flippantly said, well, more money, which is kind of an obvious answer. And then you said, well, can he be successful? Does he think that there's a chance to be successful? Well, whenever these guys look at these kind of situations, there's a lot of factors that go into a free agent who can sign basically wherever he wants. And he looks at several things. He's going to look at who's the defensive coordinator, who else is on the defensive line, who's the backers, what's the schemes they use, what kind of blitz packages do they have, what kind of loop packages do they have, what kind of movement packages do they have. And he's going to look at all these things. Is how do they align? Are they wide alignments? Are they narrow alignments? Are they foot to foot? Are they outside? Are they eye to eye alignments? And there's so many variables that Frank Clark has probably looked at in the decision to go to the Broncos. But Tommy, I bring that up just because it's a really good question. Why would he go to the Broncos? Well, one, the money, but also this is going to be somebody that's going to play into his strengths. For instance, if they expect a lot of even shades for somebody to play, say, on a defensive line, and a guy's not good at even shades, he's not going to go to that team. He's going to want to go to where there's odd number shades, and that's what he's going to want to do. So two facts, money, and probably this really fits what Frank Clark wants to do and fits probably what his abilities allow him to do at his very best. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but
and how much of it do you think is also Sean Payton and the Broncos organization saying, hey, Frank Clark, you come here and maybe you can give us the inside scoop on the way that Kansas City does things.
Well,
we play them twice a year. They're a division rival. We've not had much luck against them lately. Maybe you can come in and help us figure out how to crack that code.
Well, Tommy, now this may surprise you, but there's film on the Chiefs.
Right. But Clark's been in the locker room. I mean, Clark is there. He's in the practices.
And so what?
What
are you going to say?
He knows all of that stuff, right?
What are you going to say? Patrick Mahomes drinks orange Gatorade? I mean, what are you going?
I don't know.
I
mean, don't you think that there's a little bit of a psychological thought to that too? It's kind of the same way that like Orlando Brown Jr. going to the Bengals, and leaving the Chiefs to go to the Bengals. Like I think that there is a little bit of intrigue and a storyline there, right? Because you're joining a rival, right? I would suggest the Bengals are a rival of Kansas City now.
Sure they are.
After the last couple of seasons.
So. Yeah.
And Denver's right there too. I mean, there might be a little bit of gamesmanship there a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've got a point. I guess you've got a point. I think my point's better. No offense. And by the way, don't forget the Oakland. By the way, what has happened to the Oakland Raiders as a rival? We have.
I mean, they're in Las Vegas now, so they don't.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. The Raiders. It's always been that Raiders. I've always been that team that you love to. I mean, even when you and I were young, it was the Raiders. The Chiefs hated the Raiders, or the Raiders hated the Chiefs. It's a two-way street. But we don't hear much about that anymore, and it's now kind of switched over to Denver. I would say.
I mean, I think a lot of it too is just the utter dominance over the last 5-6 years that the Chiefs have had over their division rivals. I mean, I think that's a big point.
Well,
a big piece of that too.
Yeah.
I do. I also, one other point before we take a break. One other point I want to make on this is that I think that this is the reality of when you've got big time stars that are making quite a bit of money for your organization. Brett Veach, as the GM, has to make the tough decisions and figure out who is expendable. You've got to make sure you're taking care of Patrick Mahomes. You've got to make sure that you're taking care of Travis Kelce and Chris Jones and, these other cornerstone foundational pieces of the Chiefs roster. Unfortunately, the further down the depth chart you get, you've got a guy like Frank Clark, who, yes, he has contributed in his career in Kansas City, but he's a veteran. He's going to want a good amount of money. Unfortunately, you can't pay everybody. I think this becomes more of the reality. And it's not the first time this has happened, but more of the reality with this franchise, that to make sure you keep those foundational pieces, you're going to have to, cut some people loose that maybe don't fit into that.
Gotcha. Well, I think you're right. And by the way, it's okay with me if Frank Clark goes and leaves the Chiefs. I mean, I've had problems with him off and on. I mean, I don't think he's a 100% go guy all the time. I think he doesn't go 100% all the time.
Right.
And I've had problems on occasion, have spoken so on this show about certain techniques he used that hurts this team. And there have been plays where he was the reason touchdowns have been scored. And
you're right.
And so
he's also the reason or one of the reasons why the Chiefs won 2 championships. So
that's right.
That's the hard thing about it is balancing and reconciling the fact that he disappears at times during the regular season, but he sure showed up in the playoffs for Kansas City and then in the Super Bowls, the last couple of years. So that'll be interesting. He goes to Denver. By the way, Frank Clark's 3 professional head coaches that he's had: Pete Carroll, Andy Reid, Sean Payton. That's a pretty good stretch of NFL head coaches to play underneath over the course of your career.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You got to play for 3 Hall of Famers.
Yep, for sure. So Frank Clark joining the Broncos on a 1-year deal, and he'll face his former team in the Kansas City Chiefs twice, a minimum of twice, this upcoming season. And, we'll see if he can lead the Broncos to the playoffs. I doubt it. I don't think he can, but time will tell on that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, another giveaway to go see George Michael, the tribute show at the Orpheum Theater next Saturday. That's going to be on the other side on Sports Daily. Welcome back, everybody. It's a Friday on Sports Daily right here on KFH. Tommy Castor and Paul Savage. Jad Chambers producing the show. Our IHOP hotline is open at 869-1240. Paul, I've been meaning to bring this up for a while. I know you sent it to me earlier this week. We've been so jam-packed we haven't had a chance to get to it, but I want to give you a chance to plug a little bit. You've got a big Shakespeare event going on this weekend, right?
We open tonight, Shakespeare in the Park. It's a Wichita tradition. My first venture into Shakespeare. I don't get it. I don't understand it. I'm having problems with memorizing lines because it's not wording that I would normally use, or Tommy, you would normally use. But Shakespeare in the Park opens tonight, 12 performances, Friday through Sunday at 7 o'clock at 12 different parks in Wichita, Friday through Sunday, 12 different parks. Just Google Shakespeare in the Park, Wichita, and click on the website, and you can get what park is on what night. Tonight, we're at College Hill, first night opening, College Hill Park, 7 o'clock tonight. Bring a lawn chair or a blanket, bring some water and maybe some bug spray. But Shakespeare in the Park, my friend.
All right. Do you consider yourself more of a comedy guy or a tragedy guy?
Probably more of a comedy guy. More than likely. I mean, if I had to consider, it's a little more fun doing comedies than straight hardcore,
right.
Drama.
So
but anyway, I just
do you play multiple roles in this, or do you have one part, or how does that work?
I'm Antonio in this play. I've been in productions where everybody has a little side role of some sort, whether it's off air, you read a couple of lines as somebody else and change your voice a little, which I've done. But no, I'm just Antonio in Much Ado About Nothing, and it's a farce. It's kind of fun. It's one of Shakespeare's comedies, and it's a lot of fun if you've never experienced. And by the way, it's free of charge. What do you think of that? So there you go. Just bring your lawn chair and have some fun. Play runs about an hour and a half.
I feel like if we needed to ever rename this program, we'd probably rename it Much Ado About Nothing. Because that's kind of, sometimes the way the show pans out, it's Much Ado About Nothing. Good luck to you. Good luck to you and your castmates. Break a leg on that. That's pretty awesome.
Thanks for letting me plug it. I appreciate it.
Of course. So that's not the only thing happening today. Of course, Wichita River Festival going on too. Want to give you a heads up on some of the things happening downtown for Riverfest. The business lunch today at the Quantum Credit Union Food Court. Here's the cool thing about this food court, the business lunch today. No Riverfest button is needed. You don't have to have a button to go downtown and enjoy the business lunch. You can take a break from work or come on down for your favorite festival food. I'll tell you, Paul, on Wednesday when I was down there for the ice cream social, I had dinner and I'm a big bratwurst fan. Like when I go to a baseball game, I love having a brat and a beer. Like that's my favorite thing in the world.
Cool.
And they had these it was like a 2-foot long bratwurst. It was huge. That's what I had for dinner. Had onions and peppers on it, and it was fantastic. So you can enjoy that, of course. Funnel cakes and chicken on a stick and burritos and corn dogs, and I mean, you name it. They've got it down there for you for the business lunch. That's going to be going on today. No Riverfest button needed. That's brought to you by our sister station over at KNSS 98.7 and 1330. And the Riverfest Classic Car Show is tomorrow from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Douglas between Water and Main. All the classic and custom cars. That's brought to you by 103.7 KEYN. So some great events with Riverfest downtown as we get into the second and final week of the Wichita River Festival. All right, we're going to take a break. Before we do that, though, let's do our final giveaway of the week. George Michael Reborn, a tribute to George Michael and Wham, next Saturday, 7:30 at the Orpheum Theater. Our final pair of tickets up for grabs right now. If you are caller number 1 on the IHOP hotline, 869-1240, you'll go see the George Michael and Wham tribute show next Saturday at the Orpheum, 869-1240. Caller number 1 wins the final pair of tickets for that. Hour number 2 of Sports Daily just around the corner. We'll talk NBA Finals, Stanley Cup Finals, and PGA Tour golfer Sam Stevens joins the show at 10:25. All that and a ton more on the way on Sports Daily. Welcome back, everybody. It's hour number 2 on a Friday edition of Sports Daily. Tommy Castor and Paul Savage here with you as we get you ready for the weekend and into hour number 2 of the program. Join the show at any time on the IHOP hotline at 869-1240. You can also watch our video stream on the KFH YouTube page, the KFH Facebook page, and the Sports Daily Twitter page, and leave your comments for us to see right there. They'll pop up on the screen, and you can join the show that way if you want. I've actually got good news, Paul.
What's that?
We found an additional pair of tickets to the George Michael Reborn tribute show.
Yeah.
And I figured we might as well give them away right now. So
Yeah.
I know I mentioned before it was our final pair. We found another pair. So let's give another pair away right now to the first caller on the IHOP hotline at 869-1240. That show is next Saturday night at the Orpheum Theater. So we'll take caller one to win our final pair of tickets for that. So good luck as you call in and talk to Jad on the IHOP hotline to win those tickets. Paul, later on this hour, we will have PGA Tour golfer Sam Stevens joining the show at about 10:25 or so to talk about his qualifying for the U.S. Open next week and a bunch of other things in the world of golf. We'll talk to him a little bit later on this hour. But I want to talk NBA Finals here as we kick off the second hour, Paul. Game 4 tonight in Miami. The Denver Nuggets were, for lack of a better word, dominant in Game 3 in Miami, getting the 15-point victory. And now really it feels like the tide has shifted a little bit in this matchup where Miami, they're down 2-1. And with the firepower that Denver has, I'm not sure that Miami really, even if they do everything they need to do, can match up against them. What is it going to take in your mind for the Miami Heat to get a victory and even the series 2 games apiece tonight?
Defend. How about that for one word? Defend. Work hard on the defensive end of the court. That's what it's going to take. Now, I'll be real truthful, Tommy. You said, well, we think that the momentum has shifted. But I'm going to tell you right now,
think it has, yeah.
2 days ago, at least 1 day ago, I had penciled in my own mind this series is over. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking Denver's already won this game. In my mind, it's already a done deal, and so I think it's done just by the way that Miami played. And the reason I say that is because you're not used to seeing, at least in all the different series so far up to this point, you're not used to seeing Miami not playing all out. I mean, total 100% effort on both ends of the court. And we saw that 2 nights ago. We saw Miami not defend well, not defend cutters, not defend the top of the key, not defend the inlet pass to the big guy. We saw a lot of things that we hadn't seen before. And because of that, I've now penciled this thing in. I think it's 2 more games and this thing's over.
Wow. Okay. So you think
am I wrong?
Denver will get Game 4 and Game 5 then? It'll be a 4-1 victory for Denver?
I think it's over right now. Unless there's a total turnaround with effort and other things. But those are the things that Miami's supposed to be so strong about. You shouldn't have to, if you're Coach Spinola, to go in and give a pep talk to a team like this. Not with leadership like Jimmy Butler. But Jimmy Butler looks tired to me at this very moment.
Yeah, I think that really, barring some kind of major breakdown in defensive effort from the Nuggets, and barring some major adjustments from Miami, and finding a way to give this Miami team, including Jimmy Butler and especially Jimmy Butler, some fresh legs. I mean, I think Denver wins fairly handedly tonight. I know the line has moved a little bit. I think when we talked yesterday, it was 2.5. It's 3.5 from our friends at BetMGM right now. So it's moving towards the Nuggets a little bit. And so the Heat are 3.5-point underdogs going into tonight. So I think it's moved a little bit. It just makes me wonder if, what we saw in Game 3, especially from Christian Brown and from Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, and just basically, the Nuggets kept coming at you over and over and over again. That's going to be really hard for Miami to stop in Game 4, especially when they've got some tired legs.
Right. And who's going to be the spark plug of the Hornets for the Nuggets tonight? Did you see my reference in there? That's pretty cool, wasn't it? But anyway, who's going to be the spark plug for Denver? See, that's the problem with Denver right now. Sure, they've got 2 great stars. And do I dare say superstars? Well, at least one of them is a superstar, but the 2 great stars for the Denver Nuggets. But who's going to be that other guy? Who's going to be that 3rd and the 4th guy that step up and go big? You just don't know. It's a great cast of characters on the Denver Nuggets, which is to say, somebody's going to step up, somebody's going to get a hot hand, somebody's going to put it out there, and they're going to be sort of the semi-hero in this game. I just don't know who it is. But that's the point. The point is it can be a handful of guys that will fulfill that role, if not two guys to fulfill that role.
Let me ask you a question here.
Sure,
as it pertains to the Nuggets. I mentioned this on social media during Game 3 when Christian Braun was going off and doing everything that he did off the bench. I think I was fairly facetious when I tweeted this, but I did say that in my mind, Christian Braun should play every minute in every game for the rest of this series. And I think that's a little bit harsh, but I wonder, is there an argument that could be made? This might not even be in the realm of possibility for Michael Malone, but is there a scenario where you think it would be valuable for Christian Braun to start rather than come off the bench? So Michael Porter Jr. starts for the Nuggets. He did not play well in Game 3.
No,
he was about the only Nugget player that did not play
non-existent, as a matter of fact.
I wonder, would it be better to have Christian Braun start in place of Michael Porter Jr., or is Braun more valuable off the bench to be that spark plug, like you mentioned?
Well, that's a really good question, and that makes you think to yourself, why not? Because you look at the difference between those two guys and how they played and what their results were and what they brought to the game. But you're at the point now where basically you're at a point of putting this total championship to bed and taking that trophy home with you. I'm thinking to myself, something, Tommy, I'm not sure I would rock the boat, but maybe at the first time out or first time the clock starts, maybe I get him in. I don't know that I rock the boat. There's a certain pride in every locker room, and it's the same thing in hockey. I know you've seen this. I'm the starter. I'm the guy that goes out there. There's a certain amount of pride that goes along and hurt feelings, and I wouldn't rock the boat if I was going to make a decision on who's going to start. But I'll tell you what, I'd go ahead and go with whoever's brought me to the dance. But if I thought somebody has a hot hand and he has value, first time out, first time the clock starts, he comes in, run the other guy out, put him back in a little later when you feel it's ready. But starting, no. First time out, first stopping of the clock, maybe then. But no, I wouldn't rock the boat. No,
it's been fascinating.
You don't need to do that.
It's been fascinating to watch the usage of Christian Braun throughout the playoffs, because it happened against the Lakers as well, if memory serves, where he came off the bench in a couple of games and had a tremendous amount of success. But then there were other games where he didn't play at all, or maybe he played a couple of minutes. Same thing in this series, where in Game 3, he was the catalyst, that energy driver, the effort driver that really propelled the Nuggets to victory in Game 3. Didn't really do much in Game 2, and so I wonder, is that more of a take what the defense gives us situation for Mike Malone in Denver, where in some cases, some matchups, Christian Braun is going to be better than in others, and maybe that's why he's coming off the bench, and maybe in some cases he's playing more minutes than in other games? Or is it a scenario where you think that Mike Malone really needs to, even if he's coming off the bench, needs to lean on Christian Braun more?
Coach Malone strikes me as a coach who wants consistency. He talks about it all the time, and I think that he's probably onto something there for coaches. Everybody wants to be consistent. That's kind of who he is in a lot of ways. He wants consistent effort. He wants consistent defense. He wants consistent boxing out and rebounding. That's kind of who he strikes me as he is. He is a guy that wants everybody to be consistent every day, not only for the playoffs, but from game 1 of the season, of the regular season, right up to this point. So that's kind of who I think he is. And I'm no expert on Coach Malone. I'm not an expert on him. I'm not claiming to be. It's what I have observed, particularly in the last, month or so from watching the Nuggets in the playoffs. That's kind of where I'm at. And I think he has a high value on consistency. You don't hear his story changing very much, do you?
No, it's very, very consistent.
Yes, that is right.
And the way that they go out and handle their business, and they have this entire season, they've only lost 7 times at home. They handle their business the way that they've played throughout the playoffs. That's why game 2 was such an aberration and such an anomaly for the lack of effort and the letdown that the Nuggets had in game 2. But it struck me, as really important for them bouncing back in game 3. And they did that, led by the efforts, especially on the defensive end of the court from Christian Braun. Here's another question for you. This might be a really easy one. Will Nikola Jokic have another triple-double tonight?
Sure, why not? I mean, I didn't even have to think about it. But why not?
Kind of ho-hum, right?
I mean, he's got more of those than anybody in the history of the playoffs at this point. And when you look at the list of the guys that have those or have multiple games like that, a triple-double is. I mean, that's think about that. That's amazing. But I can tell you this right now: why wouldn't he? I mean, right off first blush, I'm going to say, sure. Why not? Prove me I'm wrong. If you're the Miami Heat, prove me I'm wrong. It's one of those kind of deals. But sure, why not? Tommy, what do you think? Do you think it's certainly possible at least?
I think you will.
Yeah,
I think it is. And I saw an argument on social media, and I think there might have even been an article about it. And I don't buy it. I don't believe it. But I know that narrative is out there. And I can't believe I'm saying this because I think it's so outrageous. But people are saying that Nikola Jokic is a boring basketball player and that he's boring to watch and that the team is boring to watch. And they go back to the Tim Duncan years with the San Antonio Spurs. And they said that Tim Duncan was boring to watch and those Spurs teams were boring to watch. And so they've equated that. I don't believe it because I love watching Nikola Jokic play. He maybe doesn't have the kind of flair, that some of the other superstars in the game do. But in my mind, that's okay. He's got the results. The results are what matters. It's not necessarily the flair.
Well, he's not an outwardly, robust person. And neither was Tim Duncan, by the way. But how would you like to have Tim Duncan on your team? I'll take him. I'll take him if you don't want him. But I don't get that. And what's that have to do with basketball anyway? What's that have to do with being a great player? You don't have to be that way. And there's an art form. There's an art form involved with the way Denver uses their big people and the way they cut to the basket. It's a real lesson. And if you're a young basketball coach, I hope you're taking notes because it's an art form to get the ball to the top of the key and then to have your big man distribute that the way they do. Tommy, I love it. I get a kick out of it. I never get tired of it. That to me right now is the best basketball being played is when I see the ball go into the top of the key and then distributed to a cutter by a guy who's 6'11". That is a thing of beauty to me, Tommy.
Yeah, I love watching. I think what makes Nikola Jokic, in my mind, so much fun to watch, it's not the points. I mean, that's pretty cool, but it's not the points. It's not even the rebounds because that is to be expected, I think, to an extent.
Sure.
It's the assists. It's the way that he distributes the basketball.
Yeah.
There was a moment in game 3 where, and to your point, it was Christian Braun cut to the basket and Jokic found him. And Brown had pretty much an open dunk. And that's I think the difference that Jokic brings. Whereas there are countless other superstars in the NBA that in that position, they would ignore Christian Braun cutting to the basket. They would take it themselves, right? And they'd probably make it, right? The LeBrons of the world and, the others that are out there that are the superstars, they would probably take their own shot there. That's why they're the superstars. Jokic saw the opportunity, gave up his own shot to give it to Brown, and that's why Jokic is consistently scoring triple doubles. He can shoot, he can rebound, and he can distribute the basketball. And so that's what makes him special to watch. I push back on that narrative that it's boring basketball, because I don't think it is. I think we're watching the greatest player in the world play basketball, and they're on the verge of winning an NBA championship for the first time ever in that franchise history. So that game is tonight. And like I mentioned before, Paul, the line has moved to 3.5. Are you taking Denver to cover the spread in game 4?
I would take Denver if it was 5.5, but I got a question for you, Tommy.
Sure.
You made me think of a question that I need to ask you. And we're talking about just how great a passer Jokic is, and boy, oh boy, he is good. Let me ask you this. Take all positions in basketball in the NBA as they are today. And by the way, I just thought I might make this a two-pronged question. This is a question for the NBA today And this is a question for all-time NBA. Then that goes back quite a ways with some great passers like Bob Cousy, and go if you want to go back that far. So I mean, this is my question: is Jokic perhaps the best passer ever in the NBA? Is he the best passer in the NBA right now?
Right now,
Right
maybe
now.
right now, not of all time,
But not of all time. But he is now?
No, maybe right now. I mean, I'm trying to think of who would potentially be better passers right now in the game. I'm
I can't
sure
even
that
think of
there-
one.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure that there are some. I'm
All right.
blanking on that all time. I mean, you've got guys like Magic Johnson, and
Bob
John
Petty, I
Stockton,
just mentioned,
and like
Bob
some of these other
Cousy.
guys that are Bob Cousy, like that. I still think that they're going to be significantly better than Jokic is in passing the basketball all
right.
time. But
Well,
I do think that he's up there right now as far as an active player, and just the overall all around skill set that he brings to the table. It's so much fun to watch, and so
Right.
that'll be tonight, game 4. If the Nuggets can win and go up 3-1, the series is over. It might be over right now, but at least they can get that much closer to stamping their ticket as the NBA champions.
Gotcha.
Before we go to break, Paul, we would be remiss to not at least mention what's happening in the Stanley Cup Finals. How about the Florida Panthers? They very, very nearly fell behind 3-0 in the Stanley Cup Finals against the Vegas Golden Knights. It was an overtime victory for Florida, 3-2. Matthew Tkachuk tied the game in regulation. Carter Verhage scored in overtime to win it. And the Panthers in the playoffs are 7-0 in overtime. Remarkable. This is a team that they've been down in the count before. It's almost kind of like the Miami Heat a little bit in the NBA.
Right.
They're finding ways to win, especially when the game gets into overtime. And now we've got ourselves a little bit of a series here in the Stanley Cup Finals as Vegas has a 2-1 lead.
Well, you're right. I had this thing penciled in for the way this series was going, and it was very shocked to see it. And granted, it was overtime. Jad, tell Tommy what I think about this.
Well, what I think about it, I thought was kind of interesting. Bobrovsky, the goaltender for Florida, really had a whole lot better game than he's had in the finals yet. Not only that, the goals that were scored against him were both power play goals. So Vegas did all of their scoring on the special teams. Florida just looked quite a bit better. And Florida, going into those very late moments of the game, were down to that point where they had to pull their goaltender to try and get back into it. Oftentimes that doesn't work. That's just something you do to pull out all the stops and go for the win. And, usually it turns around and you get a goal scored on you when that happens, but it does work, and it worked last night.
Yeah. And by the way, Tommy, I wrote that down and asked Jad to read that for me.
Okay, I like that. He's going to be able to explain it a little bit more, I think, than you are. So I think that was the right decision. But no, I mean, it's remarkable for the Panthers. That's their first Stanley Cup Finals win. They were swept in their only other Stanley Cup appearance in 1996 by the Colorado Avalanche, and then of course they fell behind 2-0. I'm not sure that Florida is going to win this series. I mean, I think that everything still points to Vegas to get the overall win. But man, that was really important for Florida to try to make it a series. Had they fallen behind 3-0, that wouldn't have been good for them. And I do think that they've made it at least a little bit more interesting going into game 4.
Right.
Well, plus this was actually a good game to watch. The other 2 games of this final so far have been blowouts. Things have gotten a little ugly at times. It wasn't so bad last night. Everything was really tense. It went right down to the wire, went all the way into overtime. And it didn't get so chippy one way or another. It was just it was a better game to watch all around.
Definitely. So game 4 of that series will be Saturday night. You can watch it on TNT. The game is in Florida, so another home game for the Panthers as the Golden Knights look to move to 3-1 in the series, and the Panthers are trying to even it up at 2 games apiece. That's our update on the NBA Finals and the Stanley Cup Finals. It's a busy time right now with the NBA and hockey and, of course, Major League Baseball and all of that. Also, PGA Tour golf is in full swing right now. The U.S. Open is next week. Qualifying for the U.S. Open is Wichita native and Cape and grad Sam Stevens. We will have Sam on the program on the other side of this break. So stick around and we'll be right back on Sports Daily. Welcome back, everybody. It's Sports Daily on a Friday. Tommy Castor and Paul Savage in for Jacob Albracht today. Jad Chambers producing the show. The IHOP hotline is open, 869-1240. I think we're still trying to track down Sam Stevens. So once we get, we've got Sam on the line here, which is awesome. We're excited to welcome into Sports Daily PGA Tour golfer Sam Stevens, Wichita native, Cape and grad. Sam, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are y'all?
We're great. Welcome into Sports Daily. Congratulations, by the way, qualifying for the U.S. Open earlier this week. 2 bogey-free rounds of 65 and 62. You've got that spot into the 123rd U.S. Open next week at Los Angeles Country Club. Walk us through your qualifying rounds. 2 really good rounds of golf, bogey-free rounds, shooting into the low and mid-60s. What was that like for you earlier this week?
Yeah, so I was up in Springfield, Ohio, and I actually made it through into the U.S. Open last year at the same course. So
Right.
It's a place that I've been to a decent amount and pretty comfortable with, and it's a little bit tricky. So I felt like I had a little bit of a leg up on the guys that hadn't been there before. So yeah, I was just able to get out there and got off to a pretty good start. And that can be it's 36 holes in one day, so it can be kind of a long and stressful day. But I was just kind of playing good the whole time, and was kind of inside the cut line the whole time. So there was never, there wasn't as much pressure as last year where I was kind of like right on the cut all day, just battling for every shot. But this year, it's just one of those days where it all kind of came together and it was easy. Sometimes golf is easy, not very often, but glad that it was easy on Monday.
One of the things that I've just got to ask, because your family is golf royalty in the city of Wichita, but I've got to ask, who's going to be on your bag at the U.S. Open? Because I know that your grandfather, Johnny Stevens, who's the patriarch of the golf Stevens family, has sometimes, done your bag work. And gosh, I could just imagine how valuable he would be at the U.S. Open, advising you what to do. Is he on your bag this coming weekend?
No, so I'm gonna go ahead and stick with the guy that I've been using this year out on the PGA Tour. He's a buddy of mine who played some college golf and has done some caddying in his day. But my family's going to be out there. I'm not sure if my grandpa's going to come. He came up to New York for the PGA Championship a couple weeks ago when I played up there. But my dad and mom and wife, everyone's coming out, so we'll have the whole Stevens crew out there. But I'm not sure I want him on the bag. That might not go so well for either of us.
Okay, I got you.
Hey, Sam, let's talk a little bit about what the strategy typically is for a U.S. Open. Of course, historically, U.S. Open course setups are extremely difficult with, a lot of times really narrow fairways, really thick and deep rough, tucked pins, all of that. I mean, it is the hardest test typically when it comes to a major. What's the strategy? I mean, is it as simple as just try to hit as many fairways as possible, stay out of the rough, and try to get on the green in regulation? Or how do you try to navigate a course like Los Angeles Country Club?
Yeah, I mean, getting the ball in the fairway is definitely a good place to start. But like as you said, I mean, just over the course of the week, you're going to have those holes where you're way out of position, or you're chipping out, or you can get in some crazy spots around the greens. I would assume. I've never been out to LACC, but everything I've heard is that it's going to be an awesome Open. But over 72 holes, you're going to find yourself in some tough spots. And I think the guys that are going to play well next week are the guys that kind of, when those situations come up, they don't panic, they don't try and force anything, but you have to stay so patient, when a course is playing firm and fast, and you got to wait for your opportunities. And, at a U.S. Open, you don't get very many opportunities, to make a birdie. So when you do get the ball in the fairway or up around the green around the green on a par 5, you got to take advantage. And then when you're out of position, you really just have to kind of, take it. And a bogey doesn't kill you, especially when a course is playing really hard. Bogey's not bad, but those double bogeys add up a lot quicker. So kind of minimizing the damage when you're out of position, and then just try and take advantage when you get your opportunities.
You're going to be playing against some of the greatest golfers in the world, as a matter of fact. And how intimidating, if it is intimidating, I got a feeling it's probably not, but is it intimidating? Is it thrilling? Does it lift your game? when you play against some of the greatest names in the world of golf, they're going to be right there with you, and everybody starts with zero. What's that? What effect does that have to your golf game when you're playing against those guys? And you see that guy on the tee box says, "Hey, I know that guy." What's that do to you? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting, and obviously, I've been playing golf since I was a little kid, and it's always been my dream to play on the PGA Tour and to play against the best players in the world, and to be able to do it at a major championship is really cool. You're walking down the range, and it's Brooks Koepka and Rory McIlroy, and you name them, or John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler. So it's a cool opportunity, and fortunately, over the last 5 or 10 years going to school at Oklahoma State, I got to play against a lot of those guys in college. And so it's kind of cool to see them out there. And I would say that at this point, I still got some work to do to get my skills to where I can compete with those guys week in and week out. But I feel like I'm getting better every year. And there's no reason why if I go play really well that I can't hang with those guys.
Talking to Sam Stevens here on Sports Daily, PGA Tour golfer, Wichita native, Cape and Mount Carmel grad, here on the IHOP hotline with us today. And Sam, you've had a string of success. You've made 4 straight cuts in PGA events that you've played in: the Wells Fargo, the Byron Nelson, of course, the PGA Championship, and the Charles Schwab Challenge. Of course, going back to when you played in the Valero Texas Open, you finished in 2nd place. Watch that. That was fun. I mean, you were hanging in there. You were right there. But you had this string of successful starts on the PGA Tour. Of course, next weekend is the U.S. Open. It's a major. But at what point does it do you start thinking about, okay, what is it going to take to break through and win, whether it's a major or a regular PGA Tour event? Because I think you're right there. And to your point, you've got the game to be able to hang with these guys and beat them. So what's your mentality when you enter into a major like the U.S. Open or even a regular tour event? Okay, how do we actually break through and win this tournament?
Well, kind of like I was saying earlier, I don't think it's something that you can just sit there and try to do. You kind of have to let the opportunities come. And I've talked to some people, after the Valero when I finished 2nd, and everyone was, telling me that I was doing a great job. But I got some advice that said the best way to win on tour is, to stay on tour and give yourself as many opportunities as possible. So
right.
I don't know if that's, next week or next month. I feel like my game is good, and that if I played well, I could win. But golf is just kind of a funny game. It's not like basketball where 50% of the people are going to win, at a given game. It's one of those deals where, you might play great one week and finish, 10th, and then you might not feel that good about your game the next week, and you might go out and win. It's just kind of a funny game like that. But I think that, like I said, I've been getting better, and I'm out at Crestview right now getting a little work in for next week. And that's all you can do. You put the time in and you show up to the event, and you got to let it fly and kind of see where you finish.
Well, I love the game of golf, but one of the things I love about the game of golf, there's so many guys that are good. I mean, really good. Yeah. I mean, super good. Lots of them. But the difference of golf to me sometimes appears to be a mental thing. It's mental. And I'm going to do something for you. I'm going to be your psychological coach for just a moment or two and tell you how to get over these rough ideas. Do you mind if I give you a little advice, Sam? Is that okay with you?
I'm not going to pay you, but you can go ahead and give me some advice.
Okay. Well, here, next time you're facing that shot, oh my gosh, how did I get myself into this? I want you to stop and think to yourself, my name is Stevens. I'm from the Stevens golf family in Wichita, Kansas. My grandfather would say there's not a shot in the world I can't make, and I'm going to make this shot. That's my psychology for you. What is your psychology going into this? I mean, how big is the mental aspect to a tournament like the U.S. Open? Because to me, I think everybody's good, but it's those guys that have the ability to be mentally tough and figure this stuff out that end up winning and placing in the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, you can even look back at the PGA Championship a couple of weeks ago and the PGA Pro, Michael Block. People wouldn't have thought that he necessarily had all the skills he needed to compete on a course like that, but he was out there, playing against the best players in the world. And I think, he had a good perspective about just being happy to be there and just trying to hit the best shot he could on every shot. And I think that, I think that the higher up you get in anything, whether it's, business or sports, a lot of it becomes just, how can you get a little better? And a lot of it's just on the mental side of that stuff, just being able to be grateful for what you have and to be able in a high pressure situation to just go out there and perform and not really worry too much about the consequences. And so I think next week will definitely be a test of that. But, this will be, my second major this year, third in the last year. So, I'm getting a little more used to it. There's definitely something a little different about the majors, but I'm excited, and hopefully I won't be as nervous as I have been in the past.
Real quick, did you like my advice though?
Yeah, absolutely. You should start charging for that.
Oh, yeah, I think I might start right now. What do you think?
He'll send you a bill. He'll send you a bill to pay. Hey, Sam, so not only is the U.S. Open next week, but another tournament that I know that is close to your heart and to mine and to Wichita in general, the Wichita Open out at Crestview next weekend on the Corn Ferry Tour. I know obviously you're not playing in it because you've got a bigger tournament to play in the U.S. Open, but talk a little bit about your experience out at Crestview with the Wichita Open, what that tournament on the Corn Ferry Tour means to golfers at that level and to just the community in general.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, they've been having this event out here for a long time. I don't know exactly what year they started having it, but Crestview does an awesome job of accommodating the players and the fans. I think last year it's probably one of the most well attended events, and they get the party going on number 17 out here, and it's a ton of fun. I've never gotten to play in the event, but I used to come out in high school all the time and watch it, high school and college.
Sure.
And from a player on the Corn Ferry's perspective, every week is just so important, And so I think that all the best players that are playing the Corn Ferry Tour this year are going to be here this week because if you're not on the tour, you just got to keep plugging away. So there's going to be a lot of great guys coming out and playing, and like I said, there's always a bunch of people out here watching. So it's one of the most fun events, I think, on the Corn Ferry Tour to watch and to play in. So, and Crestview's looking good. They've gotten a little bit of rain the last week, and course is looking green and lush, and hopefully it's an awesome week for everybody.
While I got you, I got to ask this one question. I'm wanting some advice from you. A lot of young men and women playing golf in the Wichita area who are going to hear this interview from you. What do you suggest to them? What advice do you have to them to get to the top of their game, to become the best golfer that they can be? What would you tell these young people?
Well, it's different for everyone, but when I was growing up, I was lucky enough to have some friends that were playing, and we had a great team at Capon, and we were all real close, and just being able to get out and enjoy it with your buddies, and during the summertime especially, you can just come out here and just hang out all day. And I just remember playing 18 and then maybe going to the pool and then hanging out and going back out and practicing. And golf's just one of those sports. It's not like basketball or football where after 2 or 3 hours you're just dog tired. You can spend all day out here at the golf course, and I think that for me that was what kind of helped me find my game a little bit, just spending the hours and just enjoying it, going out and playing with your buddies and having a bunch of fun, and playing for a Coke or for a cheeseburger or whatever it is when you're a kid that gets you going. But it's an awesome game. And I know out here at Crestview, Trent Roman, he does a great job with the juniors, and they're having junior golf today. There's a ton of them out here, and I know the same at Wichita Country Club and at the First Tee. There's a ton of interest to golf in Wichita, and I think that's great. And hopefully there's some good players coming up in the next 5-10 years.
Well, Sam, before we let you go, we would be remiss to not at least ask you about it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on it or not, but obviously a monumental change in the world of golf this week with the PGA Tour, Live Golf, all of that, the merger, all of that's been going on with professional golf. A couple of days removed from it. Would just love to get your thoughts, if you have any, on the entire situation and kind of from your perspective, what you see going on in the world of golf with that merger with the PGA Tour, the PIF, the DP World Tour, all of that.
Yeah, I think I've got several thoughts on it, but I do think that it's great that at least, there's not even a set timeline for when the guys can come back from live or if they're going to come back. I don't even know exactly all the details, but I think it will be good when all the best players are playing at the same place again. I think that's golf's, main attraction is that, in basketball, you've got Steph Curry and LeBron, but, they only play each other a couple times a season, or whoever it is. Yeah. And golf, you get the top 10 players in the world or top 20 players in the world playing together 20, 30 times a year, It's like, that's cool. And so hopefully, over the next however long it takes to kind of reintegrate back in, hopefully that's, something that can happen. And I think that's good as far as, what it's going to look like. And if it's going to, look more like Live does or more like the PGA Tour does, I don't even know. I mean, it's all going to be speculation for the next 6 months. It's incredible to me that they kept it as quiet as they did. I mean, literally nobody knew. I was watching Rory McIlroy's interview from the Canadian Open, and he found out an hour and a half before I found out. You'd think that he would be finding out before everybody, but it's incredible that they kept it as quiet as they did. But we'll see what happens. It's all speculation until something actually goes down. And I've heard that there's some illegal stuff, just anti, competitive. Like if everyone joins up, they might not even be able to pass it. So I honestly don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully all the best players are playing together again soon.
So as a player, just a quick follow up on that. As a player, I feel like I watched the Golf Channel basically all day on Tuesday. I don't think they took a commercial break all day because they were just talking about everything going on, and just, all of the reactions. I saw it on Twitter from guys like Mackenzie Hughes and Wesley Bryan and others, really, understandably upset about all of this. From a player's perspective, where did you land on that? I mean, was it something, I mean, I'm sure that the shock level was there, but was there, a sense of, feeling betrayed, or, I mean, how did you feel when all of that came down?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it was incredible that they kept it as quiet as they did. I think that, yeah, I honestly just don't know enough about what's going on.
Sure.
But I know that Jay Monahan's trying to do, what's best for the tour. I don't know that I necessarily agree with, what he thinks is best, but, I don't know if y'all saw it. You probably didn't, but Maverick McNeely, who's a player out on tour, he's been asking a lot of pretty good questions about the whole thing. And he's a smart guy. Went to Stanford, and he's kind of advising everyone. I don't know if he's the leader of us now, but he's kind of telling everyone just to hang tight and see what happens over the next 6 months or a year, because there's so much information, like, about how it went down, why it went down, why this is the best case, or if it's the best case. We just won't know until it all plays itself out. So, but I don't feel betrayed. I just go out and play golf. Sure. And, and hopefully it's against the best players in the world. But, yeah, I don't get too caught up in it, but we'll just have to see what happens. I'm sorry, I don't have anything better than that.
No, that's fine. I wanted to get the perspective of a current player. And you mentioned playing against the best players in the world. You'll do that next weekend in LA at the US Open. And so we wish you the best of luck out there at the US Open, Sam. Hopefully we can do this again. Maybe we'll have you on and we can be talking about a major championship victory from you. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
All right. Sounds good. Well, we appreciate your time, Sam. Thanks for joining the show, and good luck next week.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me on.
All right, that's Sam Stevens, Wichita native and PGA Tour golfer right here on Sports Daily. Really appreciate his time, Paul, and obviously wishing him the best of luck at the U.S. Open next week. Tough course, tough matchup, tough competitors, all of that. That's what makes the U.S. Open so great, and so we're fortunate to have Paul here, or to have Sam here on the show, and a great interview from him for sure.
It was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Sounds good. If you missed any of that interview, make sure to go to the free Odyssey app or kfhradio.com, and you can listen to it right there. We're going to come back. Our final full segment of the program is on the way next on Sports Daily. Welcome back, everybody. Sports Daily on KFH. Tommy Castor, Paul Savage, Jad Chambers, the IHOP hotline, 869-1240. Our thanks to PGA Tour golfer and Wichita native Sam Stevens for joining the program, talking about his qualifying into the U.S. Open next weekend, talking a little bit about the Wichita Open and the PGA Tour and Live Golf merger that was announced this last week. And Paul, I feel like as I think back to all of the major headlines from this week, as you and I have hosted the show together, obviously Shocker Baseball and then PGA Golf and Live. Like those were the two main headlines this entire week. Certainly good to hear Sam's thoughts on, from his perspective as a golfer, this whole merger and all the details on that.
Well, this story is not over yet. That's for sure. We don't know where it's going. There's a lot we don't know. But I liked Sam's take that you've got to have all the best golfers in the world in one place. They got to play against each other, not on different tours. So I like that take. I think that take is 100% spot on. How you do it, I don't know, but it sounds like a start has been made. You may not like the politics. You may not like the funding agent, which is Saudi Arabia. There's a lot about this you may not like. I get that. And I'm not crazy about a lot of it either. But you want a place for golfers. You got to have a great place for the best in the world to play against each other. And that's what Sam's trying to say. And I think he's right. I think he's dead on. We've got to get them all together, whatever it takes, figure it out, get all the golfers back together, get everybody back in the same association, and let them play against each other. That's what we want as golf fans.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that, Sam is right, when he says that there's a lot more to come on this, and that, it's so early that, nobody exactly knows how it's all going to play out, but definitely good to get his perspective on that. The US Open next week, Paul, real quick before we take our final break, do you lock into the US Open? Like, do you watch major championship golf?
Yeah, the two tournaments that I like watching are the US Open, but I really enjoy, obviously, Augusta and the Masters
yep.
as well. That's probably my number one, just because of the visibility of that golf course. Stunningly beautiful, but I lock into the U.S. Open too. I find it fascinating. I'm always looking for that guy. I don't know who it is, but he's making a run, and I'll latch on to him and root for him.
Well, hopefully this year it's Sam Stevens that takes place next week at LA Country Club. And so good luck to him. And if you missed that interview, you can go onto the Odyssey app and listen to it right now. We're going to take our final break of the show. Come back. We'll let you know what's on the network this weekend. On the way on Sports Daily.
Patterson Legal is the way to go. Radio, 97.5 and 1240 KFH.
All right, that's going to wrap up a week here on Sports Daily. Coming up on the network, Jim Rome at 11, Bob and Jeff at 2, Maggie and Perloff at 4, Zach Gelb at 5. The Royals kick off their weekend road trip against Baltimore at 6 o'clock. Tomorrow, the Royals continue their series at 3 o'clock against the Orioles, and then a Sunday matinee at 12:30. All of those games can be heard right here on KFH. Paul, it was an awesome week. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's do it again soon.
Right. Well,
Man, it was fun.
I'm in next Thursday and Friday.
All right.
There you go.
Sounds good. We'll see you back in next week then on Thursday and Friday. For Jad Chambers, for Paul Savage, I'm Tommy Castor. Have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday.